William, your videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I welcome you to Move On Speaker of the Month at La Madeleine's Restaurant, 3906 Lemon Avenue, Dallas, Texas. Just 1 block north of Oaklawn and Lemon Avenue on the west side of Lemon Avenue. When visiting La Madeleine's Restaurant, tell them you want to make your reservations to the next Move On Speaker date or call 214-521-1083.
Okay, you guys. I want to start out with a quote from Frederick Douglass. Find out just what any people will quietly submit to, and you have the exact measure of the injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them.
Love that.
I do too. This is a meeting.
Say that again, I was not paying attention.
You didn't have your Ritalin today, right? Find out just what any people will quietly submit to, and you have the exact measure of the injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them. In other words, they'll do whatever you let them do.
This is true.
Frederick Douglass. I guess everybody knows who Frederick Douglass is, right? All right. This is a meeting I wish we didn't have to have. You will hear from Collette Flanagan, who has lived a mother's worst nightmare. She will eloquently give you the stone cold facts that she herself has researched. She will break your heart with her personal story of a mother's love and loss and the pain of injustice. But some stories have to be told, and this is one of them. Colette's story is also one of hope and determination. Hope that someday our children, all our children, will be safe. Because if all our children aren't safe, then none of our children are safe. And she possesses the determination to make this happen. Tuesday night, our president spoke about our country bravely fighting tyranny and fear in faraway countries. Who then will fight that same tyranny and fear on the streets of our own cities?
Absolutely.
Tyranny and fear of those very people who were sworn to protect and serve. Who will fight for us? I think it'll be the Mothers Against Police Brutality. I give you the incomparable Collette Flanagan.
Wow. I don't know what to do with that. Wow. That's a really hard follow-up. Thank you guys for coming. Again, my name is Collette Flanagan, and I'm founder of Mothers Against Police Brutality. And Mothers Against Police Brutality was founded out of grief, sadness, despair, and horror. My son, Clinton Allen, was murdered by Dallas policeman Clark Stoller on March the 10th last year. So it hasn't even been a year yet. And until that time, I didn't even know that that type of murder and oppression and things happened to people. I thought that, I lived in this city that I love. I'm an ex-IBM executive. I travel, try to send my children to the best schools, give them a great life. And how could this happen? How could this happen to our family? In fact, when they knocked on the door 9 hours after he had been killed, I told the detective, I was like, well, Clinton Allen, that's a kind of common name. Are you sure? You my son? I just don't think so. And as I began to speak with him, I realized that Clinton didn't come home. And so my heart began to sink. Clinton was unarmed. He was shot 7 times. Now, listen closely, 7 times. He was shot in the back. He was shot underneath his arms, consistent with his arms being held up. We had 6 witnesses for Clinton, and we'll get into that later. But in my despair, the mother and me clicked in immediately. I wanted to know. It was like someone telling me my 80-year-old mother had been murdered by the police. You know, who shoots someone's mother? You know, that's how in disbelief that I was. And so I wanted to know, well, who is this policeman that would shoot a person 7 times? I'm trying to keep him human. You know, who would do that? Who would shoot a person 7 times? And who else has this happened to? I mean, how could this happen to my child? And immediately we started finding out that the policeman that shot Clinton had some excessive force issues. He had attempted to murder another suspect. Prior to that, he had falsified his police report, and they slapped him on the hand and gave him a 20-day suspension. And so I took that information and I filed that, but I was horrified that this policeman was still on the force. And so the media machine that's in place for the Dallas Police Department to protect the policemen that do that, and let me be clear, our organization is against police brutality, not against policemen. You know, because there are officers that do their job. They serve and protect, and they love what they do, but in everything else, we have officers that are bad apples, and when they show us who they are, we must have the courage to eradicate them from our forces. We cannot protect them and give them the same sanctions that we give the cops that deserve to have the ability and the authority to do their jobs. And that's what's happening. But when we found out that there is a great machine that happens behind the scene when one of these officers shoot and kill. And by the way, the Dallas Police Department, they know who they are. And what we found out is that they transfer these officers instead of getting rid of them. They put them in certain neighborhoods that are poor, because history has taught them that those neighborhoods and those parents are not educated enough, they don't have the resources, and they don't know how to fight. So instead of getting rid of these particular officers that have the bad apples, they will move them around. So in case this ticking time bomb does something stupid, like kill a mother's son, let's hope it's going to be in that neighborhood, because God, if this happens in the wrong neighborhood, we're going to have something on our hands. So we just started digging and find, you know, how could this have happened, and we were just in despair. And so the media, the marketing machine within the Dallas Police Department starts to roll, and immediately we were calling, because what you were taught when something bad happens, you call the police. You know, can we talk to someone? You know, I'm Clinton's mom. Can someone tell me what happened? It's under investigation. We have nothing to say to you. No, we will not talk to you. A total stonewall. And while that was happening, they wouldn't talk to me, but they were releasing stories that were totally untrue. That Clinton was high on PCP, that he was fighting this officer, and the officer feared for his life, and he had to shoot him 7 times, and once in the back and up underneath his arm. He feared for his life. So, and you know, when you are in despair, as a parent, someone hurt your child, you want answers. And you can't get answers from anyone from the very institution that you entrust your children, and you tell them when they're little kids, and you come home from school, you lock the door, and if anybody knocks on the door, they won't go away, call the police. Or, if don't talk to strangers, and if someone tries to snatch you, you call the police. I mean, you teach them, and with black boys and brown boys, you have to teach them that they can't ride in the car with 4 of their friends at one time, because they're going to be racially profiled, chances are. And that's the talk that we'd always had with Clinton. Please don't get in a car with 4 or 5, black guys or your Hispanic friends, because they're gonna pull you over and things could go bad and you can be dead. So we had that talk with him. And so this machine is so powerful that starts rolling. What they start attacking the victim's character, and what they want to do is to tell the public, listen, now we know you heard that we shot this kid, but let us tell you how bad he is. He's a thug, he was on drugs, and we did you a favor. This is the machine that happens. And it was so, as a matter of fact, when they came to our house, the detectives start spinning that. Tell us about your son's drug use. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This kid lives with me. I have breakfast with him. I know him. My son smoked marijuana, but what you're talking about, I have no idea. And so they start spinning that. And so by the time that the public finds out that that's not true, it's really hard to turn that tide. And there was no organization in place for mothers. We pushed, and we got Clinton's autopsy. And at one point, I laid in the bed many a nights at 2 o'clock in the morning thinking, well, gosh, is there a secret life or something yet I didn't know about? Why would the police lie? And if I, as a mother, can ask myself that question, other people are saying, well, why would the police lie? He had to have had drugs. They wouldn't say that if it wasn't true. Well, we got the toxicology report, and it wasn't true. And so we called, and we said, hey, we need you to retract what you were saying. And they said, well, wait a minute. That's the media. We have nothing to do with that. And I'm like, you mean the media just dropped that out of the sky and start talking about Clinton? So being an ex-IBM executive, I understood that I was at war and that I had to be strategic in that moment. That was the turning point for me, because I thought, being the good citizens that once we got the autopsy and we went back to the police report, we could say, see, that, why you need to fire somebody for saying that. Why would they say? And they were like, and we're not talking to you, and we can't talk to you, and go away. So on this road of despair, I found many other mothers' stories, heartbreaking, of sons that have been killed. And we're talking unarmed men that have been shot down like animals. And let me tell you, in each of your neighborhoods, your local dog catcher has policies and procedures, and he takes a drug test. And I'll tell you something else. Every dog catcher in your neighborhood, if that dog catcher had shot an animal 7 times, he would have gotten a year to 3 years in jail. There is no reason ever to shoot an unarmed person 7 times, or some of you have the flyers, Tobias Mackey was shot 9 times, and then once in the head as he lay on the ground dying. And when his hands were up, he was shot through his hands. That's Tobias Mackey. But when you have a community that feels disenfranchised and no one has listened, and I've spoken to a lot of these families, and getting them on board was very, very hard, because they have lived with this and they feel like nothing is going to happen. What can we do? They're black boys, they're brown boys. This is what happened to black and brown boys. They die. You roll the dice, and each time you send your child out, you hope it doesn't happen. That's all you can do. Well, for me, that was totally unacceptable.
Sure.
Totally unacceptable. I started working with a group called DCOC, Dallas Community Organizing for Change. And they had been putting together some numbers throughout the years, and I've done a pretty good job at it. But we started getting open records, and we were even at times, they were fighting us. And these are open records that anyone in this room can get as a citizen. The Dallas Police Department, in order to have federal funding, has to make those open records available. We even had CNN try to get records, and they were like, whoa, what is going on? We can't get these records. Well, anyway, we did get the records, and we did get the numbers. And the one thing that we did find out is that this Officer Clark Stoller has 9 excessive force complaints against him. 9. Now, you tell me, if you have an officer that has 9 excessive force complaints, why are you on the police force? Why? And so, because there was nothing in place to measure or to say, why is this happening, and because they were, these troubled officers were in poor neighborhoods, that was Clinton's mistake. He was in one of the, we call them hunting ground zip codes, 75216 is one of the zip codes. He was there. And so when you have policemen that show us who they are, we just have to, have policies and procedures in place to get rid of these officers, and we can't hope that it's going to go away. Mothers Against Police Brutality, we have things that, we have a mission, we have a point plan that we presented to the Chief of Police. We'll be meeting with him on Thursday, and our goal is to, we want to work with Chief Brown, because we think that this can happen. You know, we want policies and procedures in place. We decided not to be a 501c3 because we understand that if you're going to be a major player in this game, you have to be able to quarterback a pitch sometime, and to do that, you're going to have to be political. And so our goal is to form a political pack of mothers eventually, and to endorse candidates, and to call those candidates out and say, where is your stance on police brutality? Are you going to, we want to endorse you, but if you won't pick this baton up, we will not. We will endorse somebody else that will. And it's been done in other cities. And Dallas is light years behind other cities, light years. So, I mean, much bigger cities that have had even bigger problems than this. And so we have to move forward and make sure that we get procedures and policies in place. And one of the things that we want to see happen, excuse me, we want every police officer to be drug tested.
That's right.
That's right.
Every single one. Every other city employee gets drug tested.
Like the dog catcher.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, if you drive a DART bus, you have to be drug tested. If you are a dog catcher, you've got to be drug tested. So, you know, these people have our family lives in their hands, and they need to be drug tested. When you look at, and I'm sure all of you guys have seen it on the internet, you see these policemen, because it's happening everywhere, right? And they're screaming and they're hollering at people, and they're pulling them out the car and they're beating their heads, and doing, you know, people on drugs do that, you know. You know, talk about drugs. People on steroids do that. I think there's a steroid problem, abuse within the Dallas Police Department. I think there is some drug use within the Dallas Police Department. I think there are some mental issues within the Dallas Police Department. I think there are some policemen that need medication instead of a gun. And we know that when policemen need medication, you know, when you've had all that power, you don't want people to know you're on Xanax or, you know, Zoloft or things, you know, yeah, they don't want people to know that they're on medication, you know. If you're on medication.
All those should be banned. I studied gene regulation for 4 years. Let's not go there. Let's just not go there. I accept no excuses, and I want heads on pikes.
Absolutely. Well, anyway, if you're on medication, that's fine. If you're on medication, that's fine. You have people that need medication. I'm saying that if you are a person that should not have a gun, you should not have a gun. I don't care who you are. you shouldn't have a gun. If you shouldn't have a gun, you shouldn't have a gun. And so we want to make sure that after a shooting, you want to talk about toxicology report, we want to see your toxicology report.
Yes, that's right.
If you're an officer, if you're involved in a shooting, let's see your toxicology report.
right.
You take the victim's toxicology report, we want to see your toxicology report. What would make you shoot an unarmed person egregiously like that? We want to see your toxicology report. So those are the things that we are pushing for. We want to know the excessive force training. You know, why is that such a secret? What entails that training? Why do officers think that if they pull their gun, they get to kill? We want to know what is there in training that make the officers feel like once they pull their gun that they can kill? And we have other cities that have addressed those issues, and we know that Dallas Police Department train their officers that way. And so we want to see the training manual. We want to be involved in knowing why these officers feel like they can kill. Now, there are incidents, you have people shooting at you, there are some people, policemen, they should be able to do their jobs. We're talking about officers who should not be on the force. We want to weed them out. And to date, there is nothing in place that's weeding the officers out. Now, we'll say, ever since our press conference, Chief Brown did answer us back and want to work with us and is revamping the excessive force policy. Now, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, it is.
But the Dallas Police Association is having a fit about it.
It's good.
They're basically saying, hey, if now our officers are confused, if they just can't shoot and kill and say, I fear for my life, they don't know when to use excessive force anymore. There is no training policy.
Oh, wow.
So we wouldn't have known that, you know, had Pickerson, I think is his name, did an open letter to Chief Brown. And then the Black Police Association came out and said, hogwash. I trained that officer that shot Kevion Walker. Kevion Walker was the youth that had his hands up that the officer shot. It turns out, I know I didn't train her to do that, and she violated every policy, you know, that could have been violated, and used excessive force. So, that, you know, that's good that you have, you know, the unions talking back and forth instead of not saying anything. And so those are the things that, some of the things that we want to do. We want Mothers Against Police Brutality to go national. We think that it's a vehicle that can be used in lots of cities. Right now we're talking to several groups in California. You know, they have a big problem with police brutality in California. We're talking to a group in San Antonio. So we think that this vehicle being in place will give mothers nationwide, and let me address the reason why we say mothers, because, you know, they're fathers too, and we don't exclude anyone, it's about the family members. But for me, mothers are the birth rims into this world. If you're gonna get here, you gotta come to a woman. You know? And there is nothing worse than messing with a mother's
That's right.
child.
That's right.
Because look, me for one, I'm standing here, I'm talking to you, and I'm functioning every day, but I am a mother lioness and I'm missing a cub and I'm mad as hell.
All right. All right.
And so we want to give mothers that, you know, give them that form and that vehicle. I have talked with, I know, probably over 100 mothers. The day that we put our Facebook up, just the Facebook, we hadn't even gotten, we had something like 71 messages. Please help me, we don't know what to do. But the other part of this, and then I'll close, is to help you understand why policemen are not indicted. The other part of that is when there is an officer-involved shooting, and most of you guys have watched Law and Order, Well, who shows up? The DA office shows up, they do their investigation, the police department they do their investigation. In Dallas, that doesn't happen. The DA just sits, wait for them to go out there, do their little investigation. It goes to crimes against persons. Then it goes to internal affairs. Internal affairs no longer does their job. They have made their job into finding loopholes for the officer instead of their job is supposed to be to find out what policies and procedures did that officer break. That's what internal affairs is for. But internal affairs here have become, let's find a loophole for this officer. So they put together this watered down investigation, and we've pretty much have closed down that I fear for my life. And we've kind of made that an embarrassing thing because it's their free get out of jail card, you know? And my thing is like, when did you fear for your life? Was it after the first shot, the second shot, the third shot, the fourth shot, fifth shot? You still fearing? Sixth shot, seven? Are you still in fear for your life? Give me a break. So if you notice, in Dallas, they're kind of getting away from that officer fear for his life, you know. Because that's what they've been taught. They've been taught they can do anything. You shut up, you make one statement, and you say you feared for your life. And that's been working for them up until now. Since Mothers Against Police Brutality have been in place and working and still growing, it's been something like 18 officers have been fired. And we'll never get credit for that. But what our existence and our press conference and our calling out and bringing things to light and taking off the covers have done is we've pulled the covers and we've made Chief Brown Police Department accountable. So we are filing a federal complaint. It's almost done. We want it to be nice and tight, and the numbers to be really good. And there's a disparity there. I mean, it's bad. I mean, it is really bad. We have, you know, if we just send what we have right now, it's a huge federal complaint. But we want to be as tight as we can. But we're filing the federal complaint probably by the end of March. We are still going to file the injunction on the 72-hour rule. We did find out that it was a directive. It's not a policy. It's a directive. Is everybody familiar with the 72-hour rule that officers don't have to say, you know, anything? So we thought about going on a campaign and telling, you know, citizens, don't say anything for 72 days. You know, if the same thing applies, if you look at the Supreme Court, the officers law enforcement must obey the law while enforcing the law, and even the Police Bill of Rights. Yes, they have Bill of Rights. Anything, they don't get special treatment when it comes to interrogation. The same thing that applies to them applies to us should apply to them, but it doesn't. We know that. So that's where we are, and we need your support. We need you to tell people about us. We need people to go to our website and donate, because we're wanting to put together a Senate subcommittee. This is congressional stuff. This is not anything that's going to stay local here. We've got to get a congressional committee on this, subcommittee, a Senate subcommittee on this. Nobody's talking about this. When I even got this name, Mothers Against Police Brutality, I went, somebody's got that. Everything was available. The website, the name. I just couldn't believe it, because no one wants to talk about it. And we can no longer afford to lose our children to police brutality. I mean, you know, think about it. We pay their salaries. We pay these people, and they should be held accountable.
That's right.
And so we need your help. We need your support, and thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
When I saw the press conference, and we were doing the press conference, and I know me, just like on a regular basis, just driving around. And
Right.
I recently got married, like back in November, and so my wife, she has a very fair complexion.
Okay.
So and then when you're driving the car with her, like so she didn't really know anything about the profiling that I get.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, and I'm a fairly successful,
Right.
business owner.
Right.
And I mean, I've never involved in any kind of things.
Right.
But the number of times that I've gotten pulled over when she's been in the car with me, I mean, she's just totally blown away by it.
Yeah.
And see, and so one of the things that I really, have to, but I really think that's great about what you're doing is that you're just exposing it.
Yeah.
Because people honestly and truly, they have no idea. They
No.
don't know.
They don't know.
And when I look at I was I've been in the military, I was in the Army.
Okay.
And so I actually served in a reserve unit. And the reserve unit I was serving in, the first one was in Fort Worth. And then also I served in a reserve unit here in Dallas.
Okay.
And so the majority of the people that was in my reserve unit and the higher ranking people, they were in like law enforcement.
Okay.
FBI, CIA,
That's right.
Dallas Police Department, Fort Worth Police Department. And I would sit there and listen to these conversations, and especially when I was a lower ranking individual, I would sit and I mean they would blatantly talk about things directly right there. And so I knew and understood that the level of just hatred, I mean the level of racism that exists.
Yes.
I mean it's absolutely unbelievable.
Yes.
And so that gave me some insight into it. So when I'm pulled over or when someone says something to me, I really understand.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what's really behind that?
Right.
I would wear like my uniform sometimes.
Right.
And I'd get pulled over by a police officer. They'd ask me what unit I was in, and they would just let me go.
Right.
Other times,
Right.
if I didn't have my uniform on, I mean, I would get like arrested, and they knew they didn't have a no cause for it.
Right.
You know, a small track.
Right.
And so I'm saying the treatment's not the same.
No.
And I am telling you, and I've thought about this because I've been experiencing it almost all my life. I lived in Texas almost all my life.
Right. Oh yeah, you have.
And I am telling you that no matter what degree of cooperation,
Doesn't matter.
No matter what degree of cooperation that you may feel that you're getting, it's just political.
Yes.
And the whole intent is just to let this thing die off, because people don't stick with this.
No, that's right. That's it.
And it's within the system itself. I mean, it's not just so much so that these police officers have,
Right.
an attitude to where they want to go out there and get somebody, but it's within the system itself. And you have a lot of police officers, man, who have a lot of pressure on them, and I mean the whole training, the way it's covered up. I mean, it's systemic.
You brought up something very, very, very important that, because I could talk about this all day, so I try and condense it, but you just brought up something very, very important. When I was telling you guys how when an officer shoots and then it goes to crimes against person, internal affairs. Internal affairs puts together a police report and they send it to the DA's office. And the DA takes the report, and there is this one guy that nobody knows about. And this is how Dallas is, because, Dallas is very, cliquish. There's this one guy that is the Dallas Police Department's secret weapon. His name is James Bagnall, and people don't even know him. He's the Chief Officer of Integrity. And what he does, he's been there for 11 years. And what he does, and they allow him to work in this little secrecy, and he takes this. He is the person that is responsible for putting together the report that goes to the grand jury. And you know why we can't get a grand jury to indict? Because let me tell you what happened to us. We were there, which most families, they keep it secret. That's our other big lawsuit that's coming. But they have used the grand jury to circumvent justice and to deliver impunity. And when the grand jury met on this officer that killed Clinton, we were there. And we sit about where I am now, the family, and the door was there. And nobody would talk to us, and they were hoping that we would leave because it was like 3 or 4 hours long. And we had an eyewitness, a lady who saw everything from her window. She still had nightmares about the gun, the brilliance of the gunshot coming out of the barrel. She saw Clinton's hands up, and she saw this officer just walking toward him and just shooting. She saw it. They subpoenaed her to come in, and then there was another witness. And when they got there, they would not allow them to testify, but told them, if you leave, we will issue a warrant for your arrest. But that was sending a message to the witness. And then you go back and tell everybody else, next time they want to be a witness against the police, this is what's going to happen. So it was intimidation. So we sit there and we waited. And where Christy is the hallway. And in that hallway was the same lawyer that's been defending the other policeman for this cop that killed my son. And I hate calling him an officer because he just isn't. And so he's in the hallway. Finally, the door opens. They walk right past us. They never said boo to the family or hi or anything. And out of that door, this is a grand jury. And now we question if the grand jury was in full effect because only 5 people came out. And out of those 5 people, 3 of them had badges. So they were in there pitching for Clark Staller, and James Bagnall and James Hallam was in the DA's office, and they just gave it to him and just told him, you know, just, hey, they just... Now, why is it that 3 detectives need to talk to the grand jury during the whole proceeding? That's not supposed to happen. They're supposed to present their case, and then the DA's office is supposed to present the case for the victim, and then the detectives are not supposed to stay there because the families, if that's the case, the families should be allowed to go in and say, listen, I know my son. Let me tell you about my son. They would not allow the families to go in, but yet the detectives could stay in there and pitch for this cop the whole time. They came out, they walked past us, the DA, James Hallam, who works with Bagnall, walked past us, went into the hallway, shook the attorney hand, the attorney that was for the cop that shot Clinton, and told him, and the attorney says to him, wow, you did such a great job. I was going to bring that up, but I didn't have to. You did such a great job. They're working in symphony.
So I have a question. That's legally acceptable, that procedure? It's just wrong, or are they breaking the law by doing
Sure,
it?
they're breaking the law.
Okay.
They're breaking the law because the grand jury is supposed to be secret.
No, exactly.
Right. You're not even supposed to talk about it, right? So he comes out.
Because they're police, maybe they have I don't know.
But see, the attorney wasn't part of the grand jury. So to come out and discuss with him, well, then he should have discussed with us, you know. And so it's just wrong altogether. It's wrong, and it's been able to fester and just, you know, for years.
So when the 72-hour rule, like when did that go into effect, and how do you feel about that?
Well, the 72-hour rule went into effect. You remember when Bobby Bennett, the guy that got shot.
When somebody got it on tape.
Yeah, the one that was on tape.
That's when it happened.
That's when it happened.
Yeah, that's how Chief Brown responds to everything.
Absolutely.
Believe it or not.
Reactive.
Chief Brown, right? If you think you're going to get in with him, you are absolutely nuts. You know why? Because on the day when he went up to that restaurant, 2 weeks after his son murdered that cop, who was a friend of mine, right? And that's the video. They had little cards on the table and had people write out questions for the chief. I wrote out a question. I was there representing the people who are officers, or good officers. Because I'm a retired cop. And I asked the question, Chief, since you and all your friends are such good law enforcement officers, why is it that your felonious son was allowed to be kept on the street? That's the question I put there. And when she stood up a couple minutes later, after she read the little thing before she was going to give it to him, right? She stood up and announced to the crowd, we're not going to ask any questions today.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. No, I totally agree with you. But listen, we know exactly that Chief Brown's job is to protect his policemen. We understand that. We understand.
Under his direct authority, his command authority,
We-
right, actually assaulted me twice because
I
I was
believe
in a
you.
black neighborhood.
I believe you. You know, and these are things that people don't know is happening. They don't know that this is happening, and we know that Chief Brown's #1 job is to protect his policemen, but what we can do, that no one has done, is pull the covers off and expose it and take it nationally. Hadi.
I just want to express to you my gratitude to you for
Thank you.
who you are and what you're doing. as a mother, I cannot fathom the pain, the suffering that you have endured. And the fact that you have taken your pain and suffering to seek justice instead of revenge, which is a path that, we don't want to go on, but to seek justice, endeared you to me and to many of us, because what you're doing is you are making Dallas a better place to live for all of us.
Thank you.
For the black boys, for the brown boys, for the white boys, for all of us. And I just wanted to commend you for who you are and what you're doing. And I want to pledge to you my personal support in any ways that I can.
Thank you, Hadi.
To help you further along this path. And I'm sure many of my colleagues in this room, all of the groups that I'm involved with. Oh, by the way, I did mention to you on Facebook that Dr. Rick Halpern has committed, he said, to let you know, convey this to you, I talked to him yesterday, that he's willing to put some of his students at the Emory Human Rights Program to you, give to you, to do some research, to do the research to see how many unarmed black and brown men have been shot by Dallas police in the years preceding the year 2000. So we've got that offer on the table from the Emory
That
Human
is
Rights Program.
huge. That is fantastic.
And we also have the North Texas Civil Rights Project that is about to be launched. You were at the pre-launch meeting.
Yes.
It's about to come into reality here very soon, and I'm sure we will be working with that. Just a brief comment. Jim Harrington, the director in Austin of the Texas Civil Rights Project, told us that Dallas ranks number 2 in the country as far as police killings.
Yes,
And
that's
New Orleans
It's
is
number
number
one.
one.
That's true.
Have there been any effort to connect with any groups in New Orleans?
One small group has reached out to us, and we're gonna, in fact, we're having a conference call, I think it's on the 21st of March. They're scared to death because the policemen are really dirty. That's the only way I know to put it, there. And so they meet in a lot of secrecy there. But yeah, I know they're number 1, and they had kind of cleaned up for a while. Then it's kind of back to getting right back there. Yeah, it's sad. Thank you so much, Hadi.
I have a question. Have you contacted the FBI regarding this? The
Yes.
Dallas field office?
Yes.
They go to the news, the
Well,
SEC, or?
Yes, we have, and I'll keep my thoughts about the FBI, but
Be the same
it's a
field-
formality.
Yeah.
The same field office that you took care of JFK's assassination? That field office? Have we dealt with them?
Different leadership right now.
No, no.
So hopefully.
Trust me, the organization hasn't changed a bit when it comes to actually what they do. If anything, now the Homeland Security then, they do more of what they shouldn't be doing.
That's a bit formality. Right.
Well,
Let me get it.
Okay. Again, I want to just echo what Hadi said. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I love you
And
guys.
we're
Yes.
I don't have the words to say. I'm just terribly sorry that has happened to you and so many countless others. And but you are an incredible leader in this community and beyond. And we really applaud what you're doing. And I know all of us would like to help in whatever way that we can. Next is, I like your strategizing, what you're talking about, particularly going beyond just Dallas. Have y'all thought about having a citizen council that oversees the police department? Because as long as the police department is separate
That's correct.
Yes.
entity from the public,
Yes.
just like our city council and all the others, it will still be the same old crap.
Absolutely. Let me pontificate on that a little bit, because I had some good stuff. I think you'll like this.
Yeah.
First, the police review board, and Hadi and some of us, we went, and what we found out is that they're nice, polite, but they really have no power. And so, yeah, I think that I'm hoping that the Texas Civil Rights Project will probably pick that up, and we can help with that because we've got a lot of inside information. We've been studying other, and when I talk to other activists in other states and we tell them about our police review board, they're like, we tried that 10 years ago. That doesn't work, you know. And so they must have subpoena power and some other, you know, things that that they just don't have. I mean, they're just like a social group to listen. We don't even know what happens, like the day we were there when they found that policeman used excessive force. What happened? You know, there's no follow-up. You know, once they deem that an officer was wrong, what happens to the officer? How was he disciplined? Was he removed? What you know? So it's just nothing happening. You know, with that. So yeah, we definitely. You are so
I
right.
would be really interested in that. I mean,
Right.
just basically put, I'm really wanted organizations like Move
Good.
On and
Okay.
others to
Right.
really restore public control of our
Absolutely.
quote institutions, which do not serve us.
You're absolutely right. You know, I'll tell you guys something on a larger scale, and I'll just go ahead and because you kind of, my big vision for Mothers Against Police Brutality is this. In every city, we want to identify first 8 major cities, and we know who they are, that has the worst police brutality, right? And we want to open chapters there. And we want to train those mothers and those leaders, Mothers Against Police Brutality. And then we want to get women, mothers, to run for their local state representatives in those states, okay? And so what that does is, it creates a platform about, hey, I'm running for state representative in Chicago, Illinois. I'm part of Mothers Against Police Brutality PAC, and I'm running because I'm the only candidate that's willing to talk about police brutality, and here's a plan if I win. So what happens is, let's say if we get 20 mothers to run, right? And only 2 win. That's 2 allies we didn't have.
Mhm.
But even the 18 that didn't win, guess what? Guess what they've been doing? Talking about police brutality on a national level.
That's right.
So that's the big plan in 2016 to have that rolled out by then. And you know, and then as the years go on, you know, because we're in it for the long run. We're here. Like mad, we're here.
All right.
We're not going anywhere. We're here. And so, you know, and so in years to come, you know, those state representatives, you know, we get more and more mothers as state representatives and move and support them and get some of them to become senators, you know. And then we don't want to go to Congress because Congress doesn't do anything but, you know, become senators. But that's the big 5-year and 10-year plan. And I think that a lot of cities would do a lot of change when you start putting mothers and getting mothers to run and talking about enforcing people to talk about the police brutality.
2 questions actually. Would you say that your ultimate objective, other than getting rid of the bad apples, is to have this cop tried for murder?
Oh,
And secondly, have you reached out to Trayvon Martin's mother, and maybe she can join your organization as well?
Absolutely. I've actually spoken with Sabrina on occasion and Benjamin Crump. We, you know, Dallas, our organization is really getting a lot of support, and we think that going national is just the thing to do because people have been sitting back in other cities calling us, oh, those hicks, why don't somebody do something? Why don't somebody stand up and do? People have been watching from afar and knowing that where are the leaders, you know, where are the pastors and where are the city council, you know, because like in other cities, the city council has the power. Dallas does too, they just don't exercise it because, you know, most of our political leaders are in business with the city, you know, and most of our churches are 501c3s and they're getting money and so they don't want to, you know, so, but the answer to your question on the murder part, absolutely. We want this cop tried for murder because he murdered Clinton. We want Roden that murdered James Harper. You know, just because you've been no-billed See, and that's how families and a lot of attorneys here have been trained. And they tell their clients, oh, he's been no billed. And so that's all that it is. But
Well,
we
by
know,
state law, that's not double jeopardy.
yeah,
Doesn't come anywhere close to it.
yeah.
This means they have not decided to act today. Period.
Absolutely,
And that's-
absolutely, he's right. And, but you know, but a lot of families think, oh, well, that, you know, that's it. And we know that part of the strategy in the DA's office to no bill these cops is to discourage lawsuits. That's a violation of civil rights. And so we're drilling down even into things like that. So, I mean, can you imagine? Not one officer, not one Dallas police officer since Santos Rodriguez that have killed an unarmed man has been indicted for murder. You telling me every single one of those shootings were good?
40 years.
40 years. That's crazy.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Have you had any sit-down private conversations with Ms. Watkins?
With who?
Mr. Watkins?
Oh.
Confrontations, maybe.
Yeah, confrontation. Let me tell you something. I had some respect for Craig Watkins at one time, as a lot of people, especially the black community. And I had called his office, and I was told he will not talk to me. So our organization, Justice for Clinton Allen, has a separate coalition. We went out he was having a tailgate party in October on Martin Luther King. And we went out and decided, you know, because everything we do is peaceful, you know, and I think peaceful and solidarity is powerful.
Yes.
And so we went out and we just held our signs up on the corner of Martin Luther King, and we walked up and down the sidewalk, and he lost his cool. And he came out toward me like, you know, I thought, okay, he's gonna cream me, you know. And he asked me what was I doing out here, you know.
Where at, his house?
No,
No,
we
this
were
was
at the
MLK.
MLK,
Okay.
Martin Luther King. He was having a tailgate party. It was outside.
Okay.
Yeah, and he told me that I didn't understand the processes, and I was out here trying to ruin his name, and he took this personal, and you just don't understand processes. Your son's case is not even ready to go to the grand jury 4 days later in retaliation. Take this to the grand jury and get this woman out of my hair. Well, you know, all he did was make me more angrier. But 4 days later, we were at the grand jury, and we were told that Clinton. I mean, we were skipped up. There were other James Harper. There were other cases that had not even been heard by the grand jury, other shootings, and he pulled that case up as retaliation for.
Okay, now, do you believe that's his personal stance? Or he's taking this position because he's afraid of the repercussions should he take effective action?
Yeah.
Both, a little bit of both.
He's very political.
Very political.
Right.
He's very political.
The way to apply pressure to him and his organization and the grand jury process is if you get more actively involved in getting certain individuals in key elective offices elected.
Absolutely.
In the next election cycle, when it comes to the mayor's race, you need to focus on getting the next mayor elected with a pre-arranged idea.
That's right. You're on the money.
You have to get that, because you can get that, that's achievable.
That's right. You're on the money.
I just want to say something about your comment about a lack of support in the black leadership, I would say, not the community, when we start talking about Craig Watkins, because a lot of us are very proud of the fact that we have a black DA.
Sure.
And last year, when we were doing some lobbying for the against the death penalty, when Texas executed the 500 death row inmate, we were told point blank by some of our dear friends in the black community, people that we have worked with for many, many years, that if you're gonna go after
We're gonna.
Craig Watkins, we're gonna pull back.
Mhm.
We're not gonna support. Although we are with you
Right.
in spirit about the issue, we are against the death penalty, but we will not bring about any kind of
Right.
political negative effect
Right.
on Craig Watkins's career.
Right.
So
Right.
it gets quite political.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. It is. And the thing about that is that, you know, you have to make up your mind is, for me, is Craig Watkins' career more important than our children's lives?
That's right, that's right.
And for me, the answer is hell no.
Hell no.
And if you're gonna be the DA, we elected you, you are an elected official, and if you're gonna be the DA, you're gonna serve us. And if you don't, we'll get somebody else, and we will back somebody else who will. I don't care what color you are, you know.
Then what you need to do is.
I have 3 questions.
Go ahead.
You're given the political
But
clout,
he's
then
been
he will do
waiting
that.
like an
Yeah,
half an hour
do
now.
you mind if I ask a few questions here?
Yeah.
Thank you. You said, when are police officers drug tested?
Right upon entering the academy.
And then never again?
No. No. Isn't that horrible? Isn't that frightening?
All right. My second question, you talked about access to training materials. Are those not available under like Freedom of Open Records?
Yes, we can get them through open records, but there's been so many addendums until you have to, once you start filing for documents to discourage you, they start tagging on hundreds of dollars, you know, so nobody ever asked for the whole thing,
Yeah.
you know, so you'll get like, there's like a, you know, little version, that's high level, highlighted version, and then the manual itself.
Yeah, there's a journalistic exception, which is no charge.
Well, people have tried to get it and cannot get it.
Even, yeah. And the third is on the 72-hour thing, which I thought was just absolutely outrageous. Where does that stand, or who's doing what, if anything, on that?
We had to do some research because I believe in being very strategic. Because Dallas is very good at putting you in a box and making people believe that everything is conjecture. You know, so we do everything strategic, and we research, and that's how we've gotten our leverage, is being, you know, very strategic. So we did some research, because at first we thought it was a policy, but it turns out that it's a directive, which is different. Okay, but you can issue directives, right? You don't need the city council's approval for directives like you do policy and procedures. So it's a directive, and so right now we are looking for an attorney to look at some of the stuff that we have and to proceed with that. And it's not a really long out process. It's just an injunction. You know, it doesn't take a lot to do it. But we wanted to. If we're going to get someone to help us, we believe in helping ourselves first and try and find as much as we can possible, and we've done that. So now we're seeking out some legal counsel.
What sort of feedback have you gotten from a variety of people? It just struck me as so absolutely outrageous.
Oh,
on its
people
face.
just, you know, they think it's crazy. You know, they're like, well, can they do that? Isn't that against law? Well, and then some people are like, well, but, you know, but that's the police department. I mean, they can't be breaking any law if they're doing it.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people think that. And so, you know, I've even heard people that they are against it, but they don't know what to do. So when people in Dallas, you know, we've been so conditioned to accept injustice until when we get to a point where we don't know what to do, we just kind of go away and hope that it'll fix itself, you know. So a lot of, almost, I would say, I've had policemen to come up to me even after the press conference and say, we hate that rule, but no one, we hate a lot of things that, you know, policies, but no one ever fights them. We like what you're doing, you know,
Nice.
keep it up. You know, 90% of the policemen are behind you,
That's
you
good.
know.
That's good.
And so that was huge for us. A lot of people are just, they hate it. But if no one says anything, you know, it'll
Have you
still-
heard of anything like that elsewhere?
No.
I think that might be a first.
Yeah, I haven't heard, you know, I know that policemen have a right to, yeah, right, we're number one, again. Again. I know they have a right to, you know, counsel and make one statement and those, but I don't think anywhere where someone has issued a directive that you don't have to talk. And the way that it was done right after that shooting was just horrible. And that's the thing that, you know, we were saying to Chief Brown, you know, people are afraid. You are building a culture where you are emboldening these officers that
They
are
need
bad
3 days
apples.
to get their story straight.
Yeah. If you're going to tell the truth, tell the truth. You know, the truth doesn't change.
Why should it take them 3 days? Can't they do it in
Right.
1 day?
The truth just doesn't change. So, So that's where we are with that.
Takes 3 days for internal affairs to clarify the story.
There you go.
Thank you, Collette. Let's get
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. Love you guys. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you.
We've got a new hero
Oh, I
here.
love
Sheila,
you.
I love you too.
Oh,
I do want to say on a side note, what made me so passionate about Colette's is not only her story, and God, you guys all know what an amazing speaker she is, and one of the most amazing speakers I've ever heard of in my life. But I do want to say that there's a book, it's called The New Jim Crow. And if you do not own this book, and you do not have copies to give away, this will change America. It talks about the true injustice that people are suffering in this country, the amount of injustice that is rampant, worse than the plantations, worse than slavery. Well, I won't say worse than slavery, but as bad
It's
as
up there.
slavery. And if we
another
don't do
type of
something,
slavery.
if our generation doesn't step up and do something to change what's happening to our people, no one will stand. So just please get that book and give it away. Get it
Yes, yes, thank you, Christy.
Again, for you among us that have belonged to other organizations, other groups, and you can give Collette a platform, this is a story that needs to be told. We have a few announcements. We'll keep it short, I promise, but there's some things going on you might be interested in. Gary, you want to go first?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. And again, thank you so much. As you know, the southern section of the Keystone Pipeline, oil is flowing already, but we're not going to stop that fight. However, Friday I've been notified by the organizations, Credo, Rainforest Action Network, and the other 98% that has created the pledge of resistance against the northern section. The government has given the green light to the Keystone XL pipeline, the northern section. That means, I believe, that President Obama has about 90 days to make a decision. So now the battle is on. And because of that, there's going to be a national call throughout the United States for a rally in front of, well, most of them will be in front of local State Department offices, but it won't be that case here. But there will be a rally tomorrow called Dallas No KXL Vigil. That's tomorrow at time at 5:30 p.m. at the Clyde Warren Park. The Clyde Warren Park is just a park over Woodall Rogers, and it's at 2012 Woodall Rogers Freeway. We need to send immediately a message to President Obama, hell no to the northern section of Keystone XL pipeline. Please be there. We have to will be a deal breaker with regard to climate change. We've got to stop tar sands production or goose or our tofu is cooked for our vegetarian friends. And I like tofu too. So second, I had the pleasure of going to a meeting in New York several weekends ago for a organizing retreat for systems change, not climate change, which is a North American eco-socialist organization focusing on systems change, not climate change. At the time, well, it's long past due, but we have to challenge the systems. It's not enough to try to reform, though we still need to work on that, but we need to challenge the very systems that are driving us to extinction. And I'm on the transitional committee right now, and we're really excited. There's a real strong unity of people across the United States. There were people from Canada, throughout the United States, even from the Lone Star State. And we're going to be working on a number of projects. And we now have a local system change, not climate change chapter. And our goal is to really provide an alternative political platform to put pressure on the two parties to get real about climate change and stopping the contamination of water, air, and soil. Part of that is, this hasn't been, we haven't finalized any local actions, but to let you know that that national organization, well, I should say international organization, is that we're going to sign on to the Global Climate Change Convergence. This is going to be an international focus between Earth Day and May Day, May the 1st, to, as it says, a movement for democracy and justice. People are rising up against the crisis of economy, ecology, and democracy. The growing climate disaster intensifies all our struggles, creating a new urgency for unified action. So quite often we can say real quick that most of Earth Day events are just merely greenwashing, recycling programs, beautification programs, even alternative energy, which is good, in of itself won't solve the problem. We have to focus on changing the system, our economy, how we do our economics, how we do our politics, and this will be a platform for that. Hopefully that Dallas Move On will be able to participate in this. Other organizations will be organizing for that, so I will let you know when these events come up. So keep posted. Thank you.
Thank you. Bradley?
Okay, well, I hardly know where to start. Again, thank you. Anyway, how many here saw the State of the Union Tuesday?
Well, I listened to you.
I listened to it.
How many were satisfied? Well, there's a lot that President Obama didn't cover, and I think we all agree it's because he knows he couldn't get through this Congress, right? Anyway, and one of the things that's been on my mind is jobs. And what we really need in that regard, at least my way of thinking, is if we hope to employ as many people as we need to, it has to be through direct government intervention, a stimulus program, or as they called it in the 30s, the WPA. In any case, when I was doing research I was doing research a couple of years ago. I found this play. It's kind of interesting. It deals with the testimony of several people involved with the Federal Writers Project, part of the WPA. And it's free to any nonprofit that wants to put it on. And it occurred to me this might be something to put on. I went ahead and put a deposit on a stage space in Arlington at the Arlington Museum of Art, just because it was open on March the 1st, and March the 1st is close to March the 8th, which is the International Day of the Woman. And all the writers involved in this project were women. That's what seemed to be their direct tie-in. Now, because I got the nonprofit rate, I had to put down the sponsor as Move On. If that's going to be a problem, then we will fix it. But that's where it stands right now. Like I said, I've got the play, I've got the stage, and all I need is everything else. Like rehearsal space, a projector, a microphone, that would be nice. And this is not so much a play, actually, as it's a dramatic reading. So there's not going to be much in the way of props, and people can actually stand on stage with the script in their hand. So for that reason, I don't think there's going to be a lot of rehearsal needed, which is a good thing if we have any hope of putting this on March 1st. So.
And what is the content?
Well, the content, the title.
These are women that were paid for by the WPA.
Right.
In the 30s to write something.
Actually, to write just about anything, to write travel guides, to write plays, to write histories, documentaries.
And what is it they wrote?
Well, I just said. I mean,
Well, I mean, having someone stand up and read a travel log doesn't sound like a very politically motivating reading.
Well,
I'm trying to understand what it is about putting this on that would make a difference.
one thing that would show that we've been this route before, we've had to take care of a lot of people. At the time of the WPA, Harry Hopkins said that there are 3.5 million people that nobody would employ. And at its height, the WPA hired 3.3 million of those people. That's a pretty fair bite. And this is all about how this is personal testimony from those women about how it how it saved their lives in some cases. How government action was a good thing in keeping body and soul together and giving them a purpose. In many cases, some of them went on to have long and storied careers. Where is she, Zora? Oh well.
We can certainly look at the content and see what we can come up with. It sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
I think we need to remind people that we've been through this
Right.
before, and what worked before generally will work again.
Is that what's in that book, the 12 are represented in the book, is that it? Or?
Well, actually,
Are these the scripts?
This is the script, and if I'd had more chance, I would have printed out more. But I mean, where's that?
How long is it?
It's 17 single-spaced pages, so figure double that. And
2 minutes per page, about two and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not very long.
So it's not
Right.
that long.
Personally, I like the idea. I think it's important for this organization to plug in with
Yes.
the larger, I hate to say women's community, because we're all community, but this is an issue on women's issues. Plus it's economic, and we know that women and children are the most affected by the depression, really, what we're going through.
Right.
So maybe we can, if you can work something up as a proposal, then send it through our email list. Maybe we can get us, develop it, maybe get a decision on that. You think that's possible,
Sure.
Deb?
Okay.
Sure.
I'd be curious to see what the readings are.
You can forward that to everyone.
I assume that's online.
No, unfortunately, I've only got the one copy. But
I mean, it has to be online somewhere.
And if you have like an
scan it and post it.
Sure. Oh, well, it's
What's
already.
it called?
It's called Mixed Relief.
Do I understand
Fixed relief?
it's about
Mixed relief.
12 women that are
Mixed,
telling about
yeah.
how the New Deal helped them?
9.
9, okay, but
Oh,
it's women
interesting.
telling about how
Right.
and why the New Deal helped them. It's not their travel log.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any announcements that they would like?
Or confidence.
Okay, I just have one small thing. Move On is working on a statewide conference. We're going to figure out, trying to break the old mold of Move On, and we're going to figure this out, how we're going to organize with the rest of the councils throughout Texas. So we're having a conference on March 15th at the UAW Hall in Grand Prairie. That's on W.E. Roberts. We'll have online registration, and we'll start getting the message out this week. But what we want to do is we want to bring in our allies. We're going to end the day with a strategy session. We're going to try to prioritize issues that we want to work on a state level and a national level. Because there are 8 million Move On members nationally. And we have a great lineup on a number of issues. We want to kind of give everybody an overview of what's going on in the environmental community, civil rights. We've got Todd Jagger coming from Wolfpack. Bob Cash is coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, We've got Octavia, who's going to speak on the move to amend Dallas, and they're going to tell us the difference. I mean, I know it's been explained to me 2 or 3 times, and I'm not sure exactly what the difference between Wolfpack and move to amend is, but they're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about immigration. We're going to have a wonderful man, if those that were at the Bush demonstration, Marco Malagon. He's going to bring dreamers. Our regional coordinator, Stephanie Ham, who was Move On statewide immigration ambassador, because she worked with the border groups and so many, Rita, the group Rita, she's going to kind of moderate the immigration. Marco's going to bring dreamers, so you're going to get to hear those stories if you haven't heard them in the past. The dreamers, if you don't know, are those kids that were brought to this country as babies. And when you hear their stories, I mean, it's just so heartwarming how they were educated here. They're as American as my kids. And so many of them have, taken advantage of what this country has to offer. And, as many problems as we have, there are so many things good things we have to offer. And they've taken advantage of those. They've gotten education. I'm talking kids that went to A&M, some of the finest colleges in Texas. And you'll hear their stories. All they want is an opportunity to pay this country back for all those wonderful things they received.
And also we'll have our own
is?
Kenneth Wilson.
Yes.
He'll be talking about, Williams talking about economic justice. So this is a real, I don't think any.
It's a power pact, I think.
I don't think any other state in the union with regard to Move On has organized a statewide conference with all their chapters. And so our goal is to become a statewide political presence, to coordinate our actions that we do locally with each other, and to be a real presence when God help us, the Texas legislature meets again, to put real heat on them. This is a great opportunity, and it's just one day, so I hope you can make it.
And we're inviting all of our allies so we can all come together. We want to hear what everybody's got to say and to help us strategize at the end of the day. Paul?
It is downloadable and online. If you send out a link to it, people can read it. So it is online.
Okay.
We can all read it.
Thank you for coming. So nice to have met you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye, Michael.
My phone
I'll be
is
talking to you soon.
when I get home.
Deborah, do we have, I've been wondering, in my mind, I have like a list, and some of the people are written down, like Lobenberg is high on my list. But do we have like a political hit list of like where we're helping to organize with Battleground or with, TALK? Because I know there's so many of us, but I worry that there will be, those targets will get lost because we're all, not speaking to each other. Which
Exactly.
is what I hear.
That's a good idea.
I think that's why, come to the conference and let's all sit down,
Will we
regardless
invite-
of what
Do you
you're.
think like Battleground people will come and like?
They're key people. The people who are speaking are key leaders from different organizations. So really, it is an outreach.
You want to give them our environmental lineup? It's
Okay.
you know what?
Yeah, I associate with a shady bunch.
We know.
Tom Smitty-Smith, a public citizen who I consider the Moses of the Texas environmental movement, will be there. Rita Bebbing, he'll be talking about green energy. Rita Bebbing, activist also with public citizen, a longtime activist with the Sierra Club. She'll be speaking about tar sands, because she's been working on that for many years. Sharon Wilson, who works, she works for Earth Justice. Her focus is on the fracking war in the state of Texas, and then we'll have Alyssa Bergen, who is with the Texas Drought Project. So these are people who are well respected, they're experts, and they're politically engaged. They're activists as well as being specialists. But that's just the the environmental section. I'll be overseeing the panel discussion, but we have other great speakers coming in, and it's worth it, and you'll meet some really great people, and they find out, oh, now I know what I can do the rest of the year. So please come. And there's going to be a reception Friday night, is there not?
Yes, we're gonna have a reception at we secured the hotel on 20 and Great Southwest Boulevard, the Quality Inn Suites.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where our out-of-town guests will stay, and we've got the conference room for meet and greet. So as soon as I get home, we're gonna start getting that out.
Fantastic.
Okay, anybody else? Thank you all so much, I appreciate you coming. I know it's
Super Bowl and the Warriors.
and yeah, this is where the real warriors
This is William, your videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like, or follow us and get notices of all our videos. When visiting La Madeleine's restaurant, tell them you want to make your reservations to the next Move On speaker date. Space is limited, so make your reservations early. Call 214-521-0183.